Evil, pain, and suffering are one of the things that lots of folks struggle with when it comes to God. Why would God allow evil, pain, and suffering? Why would God allow bad things to happen to good people? Let me first and foremost point out to you that was not God's plan. I think sometimes when tragedy, when pain hits our life, we don't really stop and think about the fact that God's original plan was that man would be with him in the garden. And yet sin wrecked that plan. So we live in a fallen world today. And there is pain, there is suffering. So the question then is, okay, why would God allow that today? Well, let me give you a couple of reasons to think about, some of which you're going to quickly agree with. One or two you may think, I don't really like that answer. Like the first one, some of the pain and suffering in your life is actually probably your own fault. We don't like that one. But the reality is God created man with free will. And because of that free will, that means that if somebody wants to go out and drink alcoholic beverages, get behind the wheel of a car, he crashes that car into a telephone pole or maybe another vehicle, the pain and the suffering that come from that are a direct result of his bad decision making, his free will, and ultimately it's his fault. The second reason we like a whole lot better, and that is some of the pain and suffering that's out there today is actually because of previous generations. Previous generations made decisions, did things that people are paying for even today. Let me give you a couple of examples. Asbestos. There was a time where we believed asbestos was a great insulator. We filled schools with it, office buildings, and then we discovered it can cause cancer. Or how about something like lead paint or DDT? We know that there are things that we used in the past, chemicals that we used in the past, that there are people who are paying for it today. One that is close to my heart is a chemical substance called Agent Orange. Works great for killing plants. We actually shipped it over 50-gallon barrels overseas to the Vietnam War because our soldiers were having trouble seeing the Viet Cong up in trees. Well, guess what? It worked well. Agent Orange killed all the foliage. The problem is our troops were using those same barrels to cook out of, to bathe in. They would do various things, and they were getting exposed to this same chemical that we know today is mutagenic. It can actually mutate your DNA. And so we have a lot of veterans today who are suffering because of decisions from past generations. The ultimate example is Adam and Eve. If you think about, had they not messed up in the garden, where would we be today? The third one is natural laws. There are natural laws that God put in place that we count on today. Laws like the law of momentum or the law of gravity. That if you stop and think about it for just a moment, if you fall from a high place, the law of gravity may result in your death. Or if a child walks out in front of a bus, the laws of momentum may bring about their death. Doesn't mean that God doesn't love that child. Simply means the laws of momentum that, again, have been in place since the creation of the world are going to result in that child's death. Now, could God save that child? Absolutely. Or else he wouldn't be God. But let me point out to you, the Bible gives the indication that God is not a respecter of persons. And so if he saves that child, then what about all the other people who find themselves in similar situations? So some of the pain, some of the suffering that we have around us today is because of laws that were put into place all the way back at the creation account. Number 4, and again, this one you may not buy right off, and that is some suffering, some pain is actually beneficial. You say, no, Brad, I don't want pain. Well, imagine, if you will, that you're finally able to worship with your church family again. You're in fact, you're having a potluck or fellowship meal. Now, I live in the South, and so a lot of the food that is taken to those potluck dinners is fried. In fact, if you're living above the Mason-Dixon line and you hear this message, let me just point out to you, you're missing out. I tell people we even fry our desserts. But let's say that you enjoy that meal. Maybe go back to the dessert table one too many times, and somewhere around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you get this sharp pain right here in your chest. It radiates down your arm. What do? Well, if you're wise, you go to a medical facility, the hospital. They check you out. Maybe they do a couple of tests. They realize you're either about to have a heart attack, maybe you're having one. Doctor looks at you and says, tell you what, I think we can put in a couple of stents, open those arteries up, you'll be good as new. You know, in that case, pain was actually a good thing. The last reason that I'm going to give you, you probably won't like it all, and that is sometimes pain, suffering is illogical, meaning we don't understand it today, but I want to make sure you understand God does know. He's still on his throne. He is still right where he was when Jesus Christ was nailed to a cross. And so while it may seem illogical to you today, God sees the big picture. If you have a Bible, let me encourage you, turn to Judges chapter 6 and look at verse 13, where we find Gideon lamenting this. He says, "O my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all of this happened to us?" Here's Gideon. He's looking around. He's saying, why us? If God's with us, why us? I want to point out that verse to simply remind you, it's not wrong to question. You know, God, where are you right now? We need you. What we have to be careful of is how we respond to that. Do you allow that pain, that suffering to become a wedge to drive you away from God? Or are you going to allow the pain, the suffering in your life to draw you closer to him? It's my hope, my prayer that when you go through pain, suffering, that you'll realize that we live in a fallen world and that we need to be reconciled to God. And so rather than causing a wedge, being further separated, let me encourage you, use that pain and lean on him. I hope you'll think, you'll pray on these things. Thank you.